So these next few episodes are going to be recorded without a script. I'm trying something brand new and it's very exciting and also very, very terrifying because I like having a script that just gives me something to read off of and remind me of what the points that I wanted to make. But these next few episodes are going to be sans script, and that means that I might go off on some crazy tangents, but that's okay because I think that's why we're all here. Let's start this episode just by talking about the fact that I don't work with institutions. I choose to work with people. Or actually, I should more accurately say I choose the people that I work with because of who they are and not the institutions that they belong to. And I think this is a really important point to make because often when we look at a human being, what we see is kind of their CV next to them, and we see, oh, they've done this and they've done this. And these are the organizations, these are the institutions that they've done those activities with. And while there is some inherent value behind that, and there's some kind of validity behind their experience working at those institutions, however prestigious they are, I don't think it's a deciding factor. Actually, I know it's not a deciding factor when it comes to the people who I want to work with and collaborate with. And that's just simply because there's way more to collaboration than just looking at somebody's kind of professional profile. The human being behind that professional profile matters way, way more to me than whether or not they went to an Ivy League school or a second or a third tier school. And maybe that's partly to do with the way I kind of grew up and became a professional. And so I guess I've been thinking about where I can kind of trace back this attitude. And it goes really back to when I was a teenager and kind of growing up in the mid-90s, and, you know, grunge was full in effect. There was kind of like this neo-punk revolution in society and in music. And I was all in for that, just questioning society, questioning authority, and kind of trying to understand my place in the mix of everything. And so I guess part of that attitude just stems from that basic, we could say, distrust, or maybe just a healthy skepticism of anyone or any institution, really institutions that are in these positions of power or that have these kind of assumed authority. As I've kind of developed in my professional career, I've realized that a lot of that has to do with kind of the origins of those institutions and the extent they've come up or gained prominence in the wake of issues around white supremacy and male supremacy. And that being kind of a contingent factor in me caring about whether or not they survive as an institution and whether or not they are radically reformed, which in a lot of cases, I feel is very deserving of radical reform. So I guess the long and short of it is this. What matters to me is not where you as a collaborator or potential collaborator got your degree. I don't care where you worked. That doesn't matter to me. You could have worked at the top tier at biggest tech firm in the world, Google, Facebook, Microsoft, anywhere else. You could have gone to MIT and Harvard and everywhere else. That's not really a deciding factor for me. What really, really matters to me when I'm looking at somebody's profile and I'm saying, do I want to work with this person? It comes down to who they are. What are their character attributes? Can I see myself getting along with this person? Do we have the same sort of vision, the same sort of ambitions? Are our goals aligned? And it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to be 100% fully in alignment and there's no kind of middle room or discussion or kind of areas that we would disagree on. It simply means, are we do we agree on the big things, the things that really, really are crucial and matter to our work and our collaboration? And some of that goes back to a voice teacher I had when I was studying music. This person was an amazing voice teacher. She had this quiet kind of nobility to her, to just her presence. And she carried herself with such dignity and in some ways pride. She was very well accomplished in her field. I was very lucky to get to study with her. She was almost the best voice teacher we had at our school. So when I got to study with her, I took it very seriously, and she did her best, with the instrument she had available to her, which was me. And I did my best to kind of show her that what she was teaching me mattered. But in these interactions, we'd always get talking about life and her career and my career and kind of where we were going, what we were doing. And I think the one lesson she taught me that has stuck with me since then, and this is going back close to 15 years, maybe even 20 years, no, 15 years. The one lesson she taught me was at the end of the day, when you come to the end of your life, what matters isn't going to be the degrees you got, how many or what kind. It doesn't matter where you went to school or how many jobs you had or where you worked or how many houses you've had or how many cars you've had or any of that. She said, none of that is going to matter at the end of the day. At the end of the day, what really truly matters is the people that will be there with you in those final moments. And I think there's something about that statement that's kind of simultaneously sad, depressing, and kind of terrifying, and at the same time uplifting and maybe not joyous, but just tranquil, because it's given me a guiding light, something to really take into consideration when I'm having to make the hard decisions about, do I do A or do I do B? Do I try this or do I try that? I often go back and reflect on her words and what that means to me and my decisions that I'll make. Am I making a decision because I'm going to achieve this recognition or this professional accomplishment, or am I making a decision based on who I want with me in those final days? And so I think that's what matters. When I look at people that I want to work with, that I want to grow close to, because of course, whenever you're working with someone, you grow close to them personally and professionally over time. And when I look at that and I decide, what is it that I want to say at the end of the day? Do I want to be able to say, oh, I achieved, I collaborated with MIT, or do I want to be able to say that I have this person who means a lot to me, who's going to be there with me at those final hours? And there was another piece of advice given to me by one of the researchers that I got to work with in my earliest days as an academic. And I asked her straight, point blank, what advice do you have for me as an early stage researcher? And she kind of gave me really similar advice. She basically said that it's not going to matter how much expertise you have. She said, in academia, you're surrounded by geniuses. It's literally a stone's throw away. What's going to matter in your career is how easy you are to get along with. Basically, this is how easy you are to work with. And that really stuck with me as well. And so I've always tried, despite my personality quirks and flaws, I've always tried very hard to be affable and to be, a little bit charming, and to try to approach my work with some joy, so that it doesn't feel like drudgery, or I'm not just coming in as this kind of world-renowned expert, but really coming in as a human being and treating others as equals, whether professionally or academically or any other way we would be considered or not considered equals. So I guess at the beginning of my career, I didn't really get much choice in who I got to work with. I kind of worked with who was available to me, and that was really fine. I found the kinds of people that I wanted to work with, and I tried to keep them close. And then the people that I didn't really want to work with, I kind of kept them at arm's distance. And now I get to choose exactly who I work with. And I can choose to work with big names and people who've done, who've made their careers and made themselves great. And there's occasions that I do that. But then I can also choose to work with people who have no name and who may have no, institutional background or professional career to speak of. And I find equal satisfaction in that work. It's really not the institution that matters. It is the person behind the institution that matters so much. So the takeaway is this. Perhaps earlier in your career, it's a good idea to go for the name. Get the biggest company that'll hire you, get the biggest salary you can get the biggest name on your CV. But eventually there's going to be a turning point, and I hope that you learn to choose the people you work with based on who they are and not the institution that they belong to. I think that's a critical factor. And I'm going to start getting out calls to action at the end of my podcast episodes. So this will be my first call to action. And that call to action is remind someone that you care about what they mean to you. Just reach out to them and say, hey, you mean a lot to me because of this reason. And that could be a friend, family member. It could also be a professional colleague. I try to always recognize my professional colleagues that the work that I'm doing with them is optional in some respects. We work together because we want to, not because we have to. And I remind them that, I'm working with you because I value you. I value you as a human being, not the institution you belong to, not the CV that you have, but you as a human being, as a person.